Let's talk about this big Supreme Court decision, which was ostensibly about birthright citizenship, but had behind it in a way, a much bigger issue. In fact, such a big issue that if you had given me a choice, I would say I would rather that Trump win on this, even if he loses on birthright citizenship. I'm not saying he should lose or that he will lose. I'm simply saying that if I had to pick one or the other, I would choose to win on this other issue. What's the other issue? Nationwide injunctions. We have really seen, since Trump stepped into office, an incredible surge of judges stopping everything he does, left and right, all over the place. Even things that Trump does that are squarely within his authority, some judge somewhere, it could be Seattle, it could be LA, it could be Boston, slaps a nationwide injunction and says, you can't do this, at least until we work it all out legally in my courtroom. And here comes the Supreme Court smacking that down and basically saying, enough. This has got to stop. And the author of this majority opinion is none other than Amy Coney Barrett. Now, initially, if you had told me it's Amy Coney Barrett, I would have expected kind of a soft opinion, not the kind of opinion that you would get, let's say, from a Gorsuch or from an Alito, or let alone a Thomas. But it turns out Amy Coney Barrett goes into the slam dunk mode and writes a sparkling, spectacular opinion that by itself, I've never been in the school that has dunked on Amy Coney Barrett like she was a terrible mistake, she's a closet liberal. I don't think she's any of that. And you certainly cannot glean that by the fact that she's in a video with Trump and she seems to be grimacing. And some people go, see, look, there it is. She hates Trump. I don't think, by the way, any of this is true. Now, am I saying that Amy Coney Barrett is, has an approach that's identical with Alito or Thomas? I'm not saying that. But I do think that she is clearly in the right wing of the court. She's by and large a pretty reliable vote. The unreliable vote, if there is one, is the Chief Justice. It's Roberts. And that's partly because, again, it's not even because Roberts isn't conservative. It's that Roberts sees himself as engaged in a certain type of balancing act. And that's why he behaves the way that he does. But let's turn to this decision. By and large, the decision does not involve a substantive ruling on birthright citizenship. They don't uphold it. They don't strike it down. They basically say that issue is not being decided right now. That's something that can be worked out through the lower courts and then appealed up as needed. But the issue that is decided is the issue of the nationwide injunctions. And here is what Amy Coney Barrett says. She says, first of all, federal courts have never been given any authority in the Constitution or by any law to give them general oversight over the entire executive branch. Nobody said that a district court in Boston, nobody said that a district court in Chicago can somehow exercise oversight over the entire federal government, which is to say the executive branch which is to say the President of the United States. Not only do lower courts not have this kind of authority, the Supreme Court doesn't either. This is the crusher. Because we often think the Supreme Court's job is to uphold the law. The Supreme Court's job is to make sure that all the other branches are doing their job. And Amy Coney Barrett remarkably says, no, that's not the case. Each branch of government is given a certain sphere of authority, and they're supposed to do certain things about it. Now, let's say they don't do those things. What can the Supreme Court do? And Amy Coney Barrett says, in many cases, nothing. Let me give you a case in point. Let's say we have a law, and this is, you'll see the example is taken right out of the Biden years. We have a law that says that you have to, that distinguishes between legals and illegals. And the law basically says that only these people are legal and these people are not legal. And yet the Biden administration, flouting that law, has been allowing illegals into the country. Millions of them. Why hasn't the Supreme Court stopped it? Well, Amy Coney Barrett's answer is because that job of policing legals and illegals has been given to the executive branch. They might do it well, they might do it badly, they might not do it at all, but the fact that they don't do it doesn't mean the court gets to do it. In other words, the point she's making at is the court's jurisdiction is limited and specific. And so in a crushing line directed specifically at Ketanji Jackson, but in a way it applies more broadly, she goes in effect that the solution to an imperial executive, you want to curb the power of an imperial executive? You don't do it by creating an imperial judiciary. And the power of this statement, I think, is it brings out, it makes explicit something that the left has always wanted. They love the imperial judiciary, obviously an imperial judiciary under their control. The other thing that Amy Coney Barrett does, and this is again a slam dunk on Ketanji Jackson, is that Ketanji Jackson basically takes the view that if there is a violation, the Supreme Court automatically has the authority to correct it. So in other words, we're back to this issue of the imperial judiciary. But what I like is the way in which Amy Coney Barrett excoriates her. I'm 64, going through Medicare now, and it's complicated. Too many people wind up in the wrong plan, paying more than they should, and this is why I trust Chapter. They're independent, they search every plan, they advocate for you, not the insurance companies, and they've already saved my audience thousands. Here's how you connect with them. Dial pound 250 and say Dinesh to connect with a Chapter advisor today. That's the pound sign 250, keyword Dinesh.